The most common thing is how we all long to be remarkable. Hey everybody, welcome to the Ultimate YouTube channel. It's your girl, Rosalie. This is so freaking powerful. Guess what time it is? Let's keep this short and simple, but I had to come on here. So often we're stuck in our own little world, but it's all so much bigger than we realize. This song was allegedly banned in Germany. As a German myself, born and raised, this topic is a sensitive one. We grew up learning all about Dritte Reich, Hitler, all the things that were done. It was important to know about the atrocities of the past so they don't repeat themselves. I recall going to a concentration camp with my class to see the camps and learn about it. And I recall the class of students from France being there. And I remember my classmates noticing that they were giving us looks and looking at us with disdain, if you will. And those things stick with you, knowing that that is part of your history. Worrying at times that when people find out that you're German, they will think of the atrocities that Hitler committed and our history. And now we got an artist who writes a song and calls it Heil Hitler. You know we're all about psychology and philosophy. What is happening with Kanye West? Has he completely lost his mind? Is this all for shock effect? And is there such a thing as going too far? Where does freedom of speech end?
Man, these people took my kids from me, then they post my bank account. I got so much anger in me, got no way to take it out. I be feeling, I still, with all of the money and fame, I still can't get my kids back.
From the start, the melody is catchy and the beat seems like it's about to kick in. And the lyrics at first almost make me feel sorry for him, right? You're talking about losing your kids and no matter how much money you got, you can't get them back. And he keeps saying the same thing, kids, children. First sight, not knowing all the things he said and where his mind's at, you would think this is a person who is grieving, right? He's gone through divorce. He's lost his kids. This is the struggle for a lot of men. A man expressing his anger and his hurt.
Niggas see my Twitter, but they don't see
Okay, that relatable too, right? They see my Twitter. They don't know how I'm feeling, right? The people make judgments. They can see Twitter. They might be all in shock about what you say, what he says, but they don't know how he's feeling, right? So far, a person hurting. From a psychological standpoint, relatable thematics that a lot of people know what it is about.
Became a Nazi, yeah, bitch, I'm the villain.
That was a switch.
They don't understand the things I say on Twitter.
Nah, dude. No, dude. You know, when it comes to free speech, I'm all for it. I love that about America, right? Right to bear arms, right to have freedom of speech. But the question always, when it comes to freedom, is when is too far too far? And where do I begin and where do you end? Germany is like the grandpa. America is still very young in the sense of the way it is now. And you have a country like Germany where we've been there, we've done that. And there's plenty of people going, we're not going back. We've lived this life. We've gained wisdom. We're ashamed for what we've done. We're not going backward. Americans are still very much figuring out who they are. And to me, I'm thinking, where in the unicorn farts do you think this is necessary? It's, to me, a flex that makes you look weak. Like, it's not a flex of, well, I can say this because I'm melanated, right? Like, we're thrown into the N-word here real quick, so it's cool, right? As if this is a gangsta flex. Like, this ain't it. But the crazy thing is when you have enough money and power, you think you can get away with this. And what blows my mind is that these are people participating in the music video. Did any of them say, sorry, no, this goes against my moral compass. Like, this is just not. No, because culturally, I think even when Americans say it, there's a level of distancing and a level of detachment. For me, you don't say that. Like, for me, you call me a Nazi, that's an insult to me. To an American, I think there's still a level of detachment. And now you bring money into the mix and people will do all kinds of things for money. This is wild. I mean, put it in perspective. Imagine a choir of a bunch of Caucasians. I don't like saying black and white because that's all BS anyways. We're all shades of brown. Look up a brown palette. You'll find out. You have imagine a choir of a bunch of Caucasians just singing string them N-word up, right? That would cause an outrage. No. But for some reason, you got people, and they all look melanated to me unless they're doing the blackface thing, which is another whole level of not okay. And you guys know me, or maybe you don't. I'm not the type of person that's quick to be like, cancel. Just we don't talk about Bruno, cancel culture. Not my style. Let's have an honest conversation. But this blows my mind. I guess emotions aside for a second, I do think there's a level of detachment here from that phrase, from German culture, and even a perspective that is so influenced by media that I think a lot of Americans don't fully grasp. First of all, I think if you asked a lot of people, they wouldn't understand the history of World War I and II. And how World War I played into how World War II came about, and the brokenness of the German people, and how Hitler used the weakness of the German people and the distress and the destruction that followed the wake of World War I. We're talking about over years. This is not an overnight thing. And I wonder if a lot of Americans are not fully grasping the history, but also then, like I said, detached because it's not their history. I think he's very intelligent. He's a genius. In some ways, you hear some of his interviews and you really think, if you are willing to think outside the box and be open-minded and kind of try to find his mind, you can go, okay, this guy's incredibly creative. But I think because he also struggles with mental disorders and personality disorders possibly, and just a slew of issues, add trauma, add money, power, fame, add corruption, add his whole life, and including his failures being on display, at losing his kids, divorce, things that would mess a regular person up, amplify that, and now put it on display for millions to see. Now you have an artist who also has the genius and creativity of one, and you just make that into a big salad of cluster fudge.
Fuck Japan, I put the chroma bands. She reaching down in my pants. She got the world in her hands.
The arrogance in such a lyric. She puts her hands on my pants. She has the world in her hands. Such an inflated, narcissistic view of oneself, right? Talk about that. This grandiose idea is very fitting when we're talking about Hitler. He had a very grandiose view of the German people, so much so that everyone who was different was viewed inferior. Jews, disabled people, Catholics, Polish people. It was the Arya, the German pure people, that were being upheld. So you're having lyrics where you're glorifying yourself, making yourself look like a complete narcissist. And I'm not saying that word lightly, as if like that's the way people want to diagnose everybody and their mama these days, with 3 bullet points and a 5-point checklist on social media. I'm talking about the actual disorder. Being vulgar and self-inflated, it's disgusting. And like I said, I almost feel like even reviewing this song is part of the problem, because if we all just collectively ignored him, the problem would go away, because that's what he wants. It reminds me of these serial killers and these psychopaths and sociopaths who really get that emotional release from certain aspects that are part of the torture. It's not even just the crime itself that gets them off sometimes. It's doing something specific that becomes their signature, right? Wanting to have the victim keep their eyes open and watch, or doing some type of signature that shows this was that specific serial killer that did it, or the fame, right? Overcompensating in a gruesome way for feelings of inadequacy, of inferiority, of complete brokenness within, by now using violence and overpowering. And, the list goes on and on. Oftentimes because it's a game, because they want the power and the fame. And I'm seeing the same pattern here. You got a man who is mentally not well, who wants to get the reaction, who wants to get the shock. And I don't want to give him what he wants by reviewing this, but I do think we got to talk about some of these things. We got to talk about the idea of what is happening in the music industry and what led to this point. Just like the Dritte Reich didn't pop up overnight. This has been happening in the music industry. There's so much corruption and perversion. This type of stuff gets the biggest response because of how outrageous it is. But let's be honest, there's so much perversion and corruption where people would rather cancel a song called What Baby Is Cold Outside, but we gonna have WAP playing, and any kid could easily access it over their phone. Get out of here, right? You have corruption, you have these things sneaking in, you have an epidemic when it comes to porn addiction and abuse and violence. And then these things pop up, the P. Diddy scandal and all that fresh stuff, and we're shocked and we go, oh my gosh, how could this be allowed? These things have been happening. There's wild lyrics that go back into the 20s and before, right? Perversion, lust, violence, shock that is not new. As you become numb to this type of thing, as this type of thing becomes more tolerated in the name of inclusivity and whatnot, it now goes so crazy that you have someone who is mentally ill on one hand, who is rich and famous, who's also hurting. Let's not take out the humanity of it. And now goes off on the deep end. And now what else is there left, right? Bringing us a scandalous sexual video. Well, he's done that. He's paraded his wife in front of hundreds of thousands of people naked, right? No respect for a wife. In the name of creativity and I'm so amazing. Where else do you go from there? Of course he's going to have to say crazy-ish. Of course he's going to have to do something wild. Where do you go from here? And this is it. It looks like this is where you go. When morality is thrown out the window and when everything goes in the name of power and fame. And then you got a person who is so mentally ill, so full of themselves and so blind that this is how they get the money. This is how they get the views. Maybe that itself is the signature. Maybe that, like with serial killers, like I said, becomes the signature. Let me say outrageous things that nobody else dare say because I don't care, right? I don't care. She got the world in her hands when she reaches down my pants. People, they see me on Twitter. They don't know how I feel. People don't understand me. It creates this sense of I'm different, right? And the irony is I saw this quote yesterday that was humbling. The most common thing is how we all long to be remarkable. Something like that. And it was like, oh, snap. We all have that longing to be remarkable, which is incredibly common. Meaning we're all like that. We all long to be loved and remarkable and unique. And you got a guy here who is longing, just like many of us, to be remarkable, to stand out, to be considered worthwhile, right? Maybe this is his own existential crisis and his death anxieties, right? How can I possibly maximize this life, stand out and leave a legacy before I die? What is my value and my worth? I've lost my kids. I've lost my wife. People talking about me on Twitter. What is there left for me? On a psychological level, that's kind of the brokenness that I see. Trying to establish your sense of self, maybe so wrapping your identity into getting a reaction out of people and being different, trying to prove your genius. But maybe underneath all that, deep down inside, there's a person who feels incredibly broken, incredibly inadequate. I don't say that to excuse the behavior. I'm saying that to point out that a lot of people who do outrageous, crazy, criminal things, the worst serial killers, are often so broken and feel so inferior inside, and they get off on making other people feel small. They get off on doing the craziest things and having a signature move and a signature torture and a signature thing because they get that release, because they have so tapped into chemical imbalances aside and disorders and things that actually chemically affect the brain where things are not quite working in that circuit. Those things, the somatic part, the brain aside for a second, you have people who I think may have told themselves the story so many times that they are indeed a monster, that they only feel truly seen and like they truly exist when they let that monster come out. And anyone who belittles that doesn't really see them. And anyone who doesn't talk about it and acknowledge it doesn't really see them. It's almost like possibly an addiction where you must be seen and I will be known, and I will be heard, and I will create shock, and I will get a reaction from you. I might not be able to get my kids. I might not be able to get that woman. I may not get your respect, but I will have your fear. I will have your reaction. I will have your shock. And maybe that then becomes the addiction and that identity, that sense of self of saying, I will be known. You will know that I exist. You will see me for who I truly am, even if that means you see the monster. And how can you have a catchy hook, a catchy tune, and sing something like that? It's this cognitive dissonance, and it fits to what's possibly going on in his mind. It's just... What people do for money, like, what are these people thinking? All these people that are part of this choir, they agreed to do this, and for some reason, they thought it's going to be fine. And to think that, you can't prosecute people for saying that word, right? It's frowned upon, but because of freedom of speech, you can't be prosecuted for it. And should you? Should people be prosecuted for using words? Well, no. Freedom of speech is a very important right we must uphold. Things get very dangerous when we take away freedom of speech. So what can you do as a society? Well, we can react to it. We can talk about it. We can shed light on how this person is ill and possibly anyone who is willing to be part of this. But let's talk about society as a whole, like I said, and the music industry and how we've gone to a place where we will glorify people and maybe detach ourselves so much from the horror for the sake of fame and attention and to be different and remarkable and get a reaction. And the whole marching band thing and the whole just very German, very much... The orchestra, the marching, the militant, very much SS-Soldaten und Nazireich und Mein Gott. Der hat nicht mal alle Tassen im Schrank. Er braucht Hilfe. He needs help.
Meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes.
This is pissing me off. Okay. Listen to what Hitler says here. This is a snippet from a Hitler speech. And it matters what he picked. That I stood up for you all these years or something like that. It's a little distorted. That I stood up for you. What I did for you. That I constantly wasted my time. Something about if yes to something, he asked the question, said, and if yes, stand up for me like I stood up for you, or something like that. If yes, and then that echoes. This. Oh, God have mercy. From a therapeutic standpoint, from a therapist standpoint, you guys, my heart hurts for people that are so broken, that have completely, it seems, morphed their entire identity and sense of self in trying to be remarkable. What death anxieties and existential crises Kanye must be experiencing to be willing to say and do anything in order to be respected and seen as a genius. I think that's part of what he longs for. Mental disorders aside, right? Like I said, I'm not qualified to diagnose, but even if I could, sometimes we're too quick to say, oh, this is a narcissist, or oh, borderline, or bipolar, and oh, psychosis, and oh, we're quick to take a diagnosis and forget this is a human being. And every single human being is unique and different and has a story. And these are wounded people with brokenness. And that is not to excuse horrors that we do as people. That is to say, in the setting of therapy, this is a person. This is not a walking diagnosis. It's not a case number. And we got to get back to people, learning people, being willing to listen to people's stories and understand that it's through intimacy and vulnerability we can actually find healing. And it'll take hard work and time and relationship. That's the hard part. We want to exchange information. Give me 3 ways to deal with my anxiety. I'll tell you 2 things that pissed me off today. Goodbye. Here's your invoice. Not that everybody handles it that way, but sometimes it may start feeling like that. Like mental health therapy is a commodity. Everything's a commodity. Give me a good track, I'll give you my money. Give me a good reaction, I'll give you a like. Give me a few tips and give me some affirmation and I'll be good. See you in 2 weeks. But people are hurting. They need something deeper. And as a therapist, I see this person and I wonder, man, how deep those death anxieties and existential fears must be to be so desperate, so hungry to be respected and seen. And instead of saying, is there something wrong with me? Maybe I need to change. You've gone and victimized yourself. You've gone and glorified yourself. I am a gift to the world, to the point that he is acting like he is Hitler, like he is this superior race of beauty. Is that why they're singing the N-word, Heil Hitler? Is that H Hitler? I want to be careful I don't get this video taken down. Is that why this is a bunch of melanated brothers singing N-word, H Hitler? Because it's this idea of we are actually the superior people now. Like it was the Germans, right? The Caucasians who thought they were superior. We as the Brown brothers are now taking it back. We're the superior ones. Disorders aside, y'all, diagnosis aside, to reach that type of place. What type of story do you have to tell yourself that often to be okay with that? I saw this movie where it was an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and the serial killer expressed how in the very last moments of his victims, they would look at him and he felt truly seen. They truly saw him and the monster that he was. And he said there was no darkness in it. They fully saw me. And my husband and I were talking about how, from a psychological standpoint, it seems that no matter if he even had, because this man had like a separate life with a wife and kids and whatnot, no matter if there were people that loved him, he didn't really feel seen by them because they didn't see the monster. And it's almost like it was only those people who saw the monster and the killer who really saw him in their last moments of life that really validated his existence. The people that loved him and thought he was a good husband and man, they didn't really see him because they didn't see the monster. And he had stored to himself so much, I guess, and internalized abuse from his childhood and his mother and whatnot. He's so internalized that he is a monster that unless people saw the monster, they didn't really see the legacy that he's leaving and what he is okay with doing in his existence. But on a macro level, talking about a society where we have allowed take in music and art and genius, and in the name of what? Free speech, in the name of art, we now say, well, everything goes. And here we have a man who's gone from making crazy statements and wanting to be unique to now demanding what he might think is respect, thinking that he is the next Hitler. That's not going to happen, because what happened to Nazi Germany, my brother? It fell. Just like the Roman Empire and all the empires before. And Germany was divided, and Germany wasn't liberated. Germany was conquered. Germany was conquered by other countries and was divided and ripped in two for years until finally we were reunited again. That's why we celebrate Tag der Deutschen Einheit. We became our own country again and have figured out a better way to do democracy and all that schnaz since then. And still have our crises when it comes to all kinds of topics and political division. But we had to rebuild, and we had to work our way from the ground up. There was so much death and so much loss involved. So Kanye, who is an admirer of Nazi Germany, he may be admiring certain ideas of knowing who you are and wanting to establish yourself as a person, but that's misplaced, bro. That's misplaced. How do we use these platforms to not support the wrong kind of content, to not give people the spotlight that don't need any more of it, but at the same time use these platforms for good and to shed light on important topics? Talk to me in the comment section what you think, and I'll see you on the next ride. Ayo.